Welcome to Pilates is the Answer podcast, where you can discover the power of Pilates and how it can improve every aspect of your life. We are your hosts, Stacey Jernigan
and Pearl Dahmen, and we look forward to introducing and sharing all of the questions about which Pilates is the answer.
Welcome back, Pilates is the Answer podcast family. I am so excited today to have one of my favorite, really my favorite people on the whole planet, and one of my favorite Pilates mentors who I have learned a lot from. Wonderful mom, wonderful friend. There's just so many wonderful things about her. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Oh, thanks, Stacey. I feel the same exact way about you. You have been such a gift of a friend, and what a great mom you are, and just friend too, and amazing Pilates instructor, and learned so much from you as well. So thank you for having me on. So I'm Kristy McKinney, and I have been teaching Pilates about 14 years now, and I was doing fitness before that, about 4 or 5 years. I was teaching some group fitness before I got into the Pilates world. And so I am a mom of 3 kids, 19, about to be 18 and 13. I've been married for 21 years, and my husband and I love being parents, but we really just love also hanging out with each other. Anyway, so I'm a mom of a special needs 19-year-old. So that's a fun fact about me, and love that. But he is a precious, precious part of my life. And then work full time in the Pilates world. So
very well-rounded. So I want to ask you, just in general, how did you get into Pilates?
So I was kind of thrown in it by accident, working as a group fitness director at a YMCA in North Alabama. And my boss decided to get reformers, 2 of them. And we were kind of like, I don't even know what a reformer is. And so she had said, I want you to get this certification. I'm going to fly in a master instructor to train you guys on this piece of equipment, and I will pay for this first certification. So I couldn't say no. And so I was like, all right, I'm willing to learn anything. So I literally had never seen a reformer the moment I walked in the door for the certification course, and very overwhelmed. And I cried a lot through that 2-week process of learning the reformer. Classroom time overall was just intrigued by it and wanted to master it, but was very scary and intimidating at first. So that's kind of how I got into it. And all these years later, I'm still doing it. So obviously it's stuck.
That's right. I love it. So what in particular was intimidating about it?
So this lady that flew in knew every anatomical term and was using them the entire course. And she was pretty rough on us because being a group fitness instructor, we don't have to know what the multifidus is. And so, and all those fancy muscles. So when she started saying things like your serratus anterior, your multifidus, your transversus abdominis, I was like raising my hand, like, what, where is that muscle?
Yeah.
And she said, it is a problem that you don't know anatomy. And when you walked in this room, you need to go back to college and get a class in that. And I felt really stupid and like, wow, okay.
Oh, that makes it difficult to learn. Okay.
So I felt really dumb for the rest of the time, but it also lit in me this fire of like, I know I can learn it. I want to learn it. It's interesting, but I just don't know it yet, so.
Right. Well, good for you for sticking with it. And yes, now you know a lot. Now you're that person, although I don't guess that you would be that intense about.
I am much more of like, hey, you don't know what this is? Well, I will teach you what it is.
Right. Exactly. That's how we learn. Oh my goodness. I did not know that. So you're training the in studio days. That was 2 weeks, you said. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then what? Then what happened after that? Then you started to do your hours, I would guess.
Yes. We started immediately training people on the equipment as apprentices, and I literally would hold my book and go, I don't know what I'm doing, so we're not going to charge you much money.
Yeah.
And I practiced a lot, and I was immediately practicing with clients that had had a stroke. And that helped me learn it the most, is because I didn't have what we would call quote unquote easy clients that have no injuries. I wanted the challenging clients. I wanted to figure out how to apply this to people who truly needed it. And part of that was that I had a disabled family member. And so that made me want to help people with neurological issues already. Plus, nobody in our town had Pilates equipment, and nobody was doing Pilates. So that lady flew in and flew right back out, and never heard from her again. And so I was kind of alone. So what I did was I thought, well, I'm going to start asking physical therapist friends for help. And then I'm going to start applying it to this equipment, because they didn't have Pilates equipment either at the time. Now everybody has Pilates equipment in physical therapy studios, and lots of PTs go through our education now that I lead. And so, but back then that wasn't the case. I just started learning from people online. And one of my favorite people that really helped me was Tom McCook, a balanced body master instructor, and then Dr. Brent Anderson, who's with Polestar. And so I started really just soaking up everything I could get my hands on by them. And I just felt like that really, and I would just watch Dr. Anderson on YouTube do rehab on the Cadillac and then like I'm doing the pull down bar. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And that could apply to the reformer. And we had gotten a tower by this point and a chair. And so we were starting to apply that stuff, and I started seeing it. And then I went and got my chair certification. And then and it just took me a long time. I had 3 small babies. And like I said, one was very handicapped and he was having seizures. So I didn't have a whole lot of time during the day to study and practice, but I would book out every day. I'm going to practice with people for 2 hours, or at least 1 hour. And then I'm going to study 30 minutes at night before I go to bed. And I kept doing flashcards of muscles, and somehow 6 months, I passed my reformer test.
Wow. I love that you explained it and that you broke it down that way, because that's one of the barriers I think that a lot of teacher trainers have, is how do I make time for these, studying, and how do I make time for learning the anatomy and for doing the practice teaching hours. So I love that you explain it that way. And that's so inspiring that I'm guessing you were still working also this whole time.
Yes. So I'm working part-time because that's all I could do. And I was homeschooling one of my kids.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I was slammed during the day. So I just had to make it work, and I disciplined myself. I tell my students this all the time now, but I did not allow myself, when I was practicing to test out, to do any entertainment for 6 days of the week. And only one day could I watch Netflix or movies or whatever. The rest of the time I had to discipline myself to study when I had those parts of time where my kids were in bed or napping or whatever. And it just took an extreme amount of discipline, but it's doable. And I was like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Because I really had no opportunity except for those little bits of time. And, and I did my observation hours the best of I could, but I couldn't travel and go to studios because there were not in my city. And so I was watching videos to observe. I was having to observe with the technology we have today. And with today too, you get tons of plethora of observation,
right?
And
so
self-practice.
Okay, so then that's so fascinating to me. I have tons of questions for you, but okay, so you've been through all that. You finished in 6 months reformer. Okay, and then what next?
And then that's when I'd started chair, and I couldn't pay for Pilates all at once. I had to kind of pay for it, and and I just took my time. And every time I got a new piece of equipment, I freaked out. I was like, I'm never going to learn this. And I always did. And so I've learned, okay, you're going to learn it. It's just going to take some time, and just keep repetition, practicing. That's all it is, just little bits at a time. And the book Atomic Habits is one of my favorite books to recommend, because it's that whole idea of just these daily decisions, these small little decisions of 10 minutes to an hour a day of just investing in your knowledge. You will be way ahead, of an average person who's not doing that. And so I've taken that advice. And so then after chair, we started mat. And then after mat I moved to Birmingham. So I moved to a new city and had not tested out on all of that yet. And so other than the reformer, and there was a lady who had a small studio, and I started working with her, and she was inside of a physical therapy studio, and she had Core Lines, which is not Pilates, but Balanced Body owns that piece of equipment. And she is a master trainer for them. And then I learned a lot from just that piece of equipment from Gait. And that's when I'm a foot specialist now, but I loved the foot. I had major foot problems as a 15-year-old, 16, and had major surgeries by the time I was 19. So I really got a passion for gait and feet problems. Then I got the Core Line training, level 1 and 2. Then we moved on to Cadillac, barrels. I took my time, let's just say that. And then I went and tested out on all of the equipment at once. That's when I master instructor stuff and started knowing I really wanted to do that, and became a master instructor for Club Pilates. And then after 3 years with being a master instructor, and we were in the first wave of like 30 master instructors, there was only maybe 40 studios total in the United States. We're like getting together in California and just trying to figure out what to do next and just kind of working that out. Ended up leaving, just needing a break with my family and all the travel and everything. It just felt like a little intense. So I backed away from just the franchise aspect. It needed to be just more home more. And so I worked for a local studio and ended up becoming a Pilates Academy International Master Instructor because I still wanted to educate, but wanted to do it at home. And so now I get to do it at home on the weekends, and I love that so much. And I love educating new instructors.
Yeah, you have such a talent for that, for sure. You're so encouraging, you're so motivating, and you know so much. And I just think that that's just the perfect thing for you to be doing. I'm so excited for you. I want to talk more about what you're doing now, but I want to go back. I'm curious to know, do you remember when you were going through your training, and even if it was just all those different parts segmented, was there a particular concept that was hard for you to understand as an instructor, how to convey that, understand that concept for yourself and then how to convey that to your clients?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a particular concept, but I remember hearing the instructor talk a lot about, I was having a hard time understanding how Pilates movements, why they're important. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's just another type of exercise, but what makes them important? And so really for me, it kind of clicked, and I don't know what year it clicked, but it clicked at some point during I feel like I was still in the learning process, the first 3 to 5 years of my becoming an instructor. I just feel like you don't really know at first. I was starting to see people's bodies change just by me cueing them in the right alignment. And I knew I would see that this alignment was not correct, and I could see it in a person's body, but I would think, how do I communicate this? How do I get them to feel this in their body? How do I help them understand it's important? And that how a lot of these Pilates exercises, why are they important? Like, let's say the roll up, for instance. Well, we're getting out of the bed. We have to have a strong trunk to lift ourselves up, right? In order to have function in our body, or yes, strong hip flexors in the teaser. People avoid the teaser sometimes because they're worried about their hip flexors. But I'm like, actually, tight hip flexors are weak hip flexors, and we need to work our hip flexors. And that strength training we're doing in those 22 hip flexors we got are very important. And so it changed. It's like no longer am I afraid of movement, but I'm able to help people understand why they need this movement. These are not just exercises to do them, but there's actually meaning behind them in daily life activities that they transfer over to a better life,
Yeah. And I think that's what really is so cool about the Pilates movements, right? Is the functionality of it, and that it does really make sense. But I think you're right. It's hard to see that with some of the exercises, especially when you're learning all the different apparatus segmented. It's not like you learn how do I do spinal extension across all the different apparatus.
Right.
It's not taught that way typically in most programs. And then also, like you're talking about, a lot of times we don't go through a comprehensive training and learn it all at once. And then just translating it into how you're teaching. I love that you explain it that way, because that is just so, I think there's a lot of instructors that'll be able to relate to that.
Good.
Okay. So I'm curious about hearing more about the foot and the gait work that you do, the pattern work that you do. So I don't want to forget to ask you that. But before we move into that and everything else that you're up to now, was there something in your training that helped you with your parenting, with being a mom, with any of your kids? I would just love to hear about that.
Comes to mind is I noticed probably about 7 years ago that just some emotions that were coming up during training a class, for instance, or when maybe a member that was in your group class was kind of like not following you well and treating you kind of like, I had a few people roll their eyes like, oh, whatever, or make noises like just huffing and things. And I read the book Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown around that time. And one of the things Brene says in that is when you're leading a group, she was speaking to a group when she gave this example, but there was one guy in the crowd that was just had his arms crossed, didn't believe what she had to say, didn't like her statistics, didn't trust her. And so instead of, she said, what I should have done is just kept teaching to everybody else and not that one guy. But I did the worst thing possible. And I started teaching to that one guy because I was trying to prove myself. And so I have done that before. I'm guilty of that because, and the idea and also learning about my Enneagram number, that I'm a 3 on the Enneagram.
You are? Okay.
Yes. I want to be liked. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, learning those two things has helped me in parenting, believe it or not, because I learned, okay, what's being triggered in me at work is being triggered in me at home too by my kids. What's coming out a lot of times in my red flag things for my Enneagram is also coming out at home. And then I started to learn about how that happens with them, with their Enneagram numbers, and how I can love them well because I'm learning to love the people, my clients, my one-on-one clients too. What do they need to feel encouraged? Same thing with my children. And so I feel like being learning how to deal with conflict at work and set boundaries, right? I've worked in lots of studios and there's some unhealthy people in studios. And so learning where I have contributed to lack of boundaries and what I can do to set up boundaries in the future to be more healthy for my family too, and you got to set boundaries with family too, not just coworkers. And so you're always learning that to be what does professionalism look like without being inauthentic and awkward, because you want to be personable at the same time and not cross boundaries that need to be there for a reason. So I hope that was clear as mud.
Well, no, but as I'm listening to you, it brought up so many things that I'm thinking about for myself, and there's such a self-care element to our roles, of course, both as parents and as instructors, and it's one of my downfalls. Absolutely, I'm so terrible with carving out time for myself and setting those boundaries. And if somebody needs to reschedule their private, for example, I'm like, sure, and I'm try to be pretty open with and flexible. And same thing with my son. I'm pretty easygoing about things. And so then when I need to make a lot of changes for other people, I realize how worn out I am, how exhausted I am, how I'm not scheduling my own Pilates, I'm not scheduling my own workouts, I'm not meal prepping, I'm not doing any of the things that I know that I need to be doing. And it brings me back to the book you mentioned, Atomic Habits. I've read part of it. Not all of it. So I need to go. It's just those things, so I need to go back and read that. I'm so glad you brought that up. But no, it's so cool listening to you talk about all this. And I just appreciate you being so open. Okay. So tell me what all you're up to now, all the wonderful things you're doing. And I have to say too, give you a little plug. Because I was in Birmingham recently and I was so excited that I got to come to one of your classes. It was just kind of like a little surprise last minute thing. I didn't know it was going to work out. I had the best time. Oh, it was so great to see you. So it was very cool.
I'm so glad. Yeah, that was so fun. Pilates suspension method is such a fun thing to teach, and just giving Rebecca Beckler shout outs for that because it's a great method and I have loved. But so I'm still, my favorite thing is I like to do a little bit of one-on-ones, a little bit of classes, a little bit of educating. So, and make it a well-rounded kind of thing. So we have about 17 instructors at our current studio. So I am the lead instructor, and I'm here to be a mentor to help them to feel supported and to have fun. And just that we do group fitness here too, not just Pilates.
And
So,
for
and that's what
for listeners that don't know where Kristy is, she's at Provision in Birmingham. So if you're anywhere near the area, you'll have to go see her.
Right, please come visit. We would love it. And so we have 2 private rooms and a cardio and a reformer room. And so we have a lot going on at different times. And so we might have education at the front. Margaret's also a master instructor. She's the owner of the studio here. And she might be leading a group of students. And then I'm in the back doing a reformer class. And then we will switch off so that neither one of us gets too tired. And then we have another master instructor who just started about 6 months ago named Emma, that is helping us. So yeah, I think you know Emma Farmer.
I do. I love that. And, I'm so proud of her. That's great.
Great. And she's like a sponge. She just grows so fast. And so, so the 3 of us just switch it off so nobody gets burned out. And we love the students getting 3 different personalities, 3 different perspectives and client base, really helpful. And then Margaret and I we have our own online business called the Onyx Method. And she and I do things for students. So for instance, a lot of our students join the Onyx Method to get observation hours, class choreography. I just did a private with someone just that I'd never done a private with, and I upload it so they can see how I do a posture assessment, what I do, what I look at when I'm looking at someone's form and all that, and how I would train them. And a lot of our students have said that has helped them so much in learning. And then we also have a part of it that's just online fitness for people who want to work out at home. So we'll have mat classes, and we'll have reformer classes, and we'll have BOSU and trampoline, because we do rebounders here, and I love the rebounder. And so we just want to have all of that in there. So and I do a lot of my foot stuff. So I have a whole section of foot and gait. So if I have a foot and gait client who comes to me for a foot assessment, I will often refer them to the Onyx Method. If they want to watch videos, I'll give them a list of exercises, but sometimes they say, I'd rather just watch you lead me through it and not remember all these. So that's okay, so.
I love that, all the well-rounded different things you're offering. I was going to ask you what your dream job is, but I don't know it. Maybe it sounds like you're already doing it.
Well, actually, Margaret and I are in process of writing educational materials too.
Okay.
And dream of like putting my group fitness stuff mixed with my Pilates so that you have it all in one. And we love the tower reformer. So just incorporating tower reformer work that's not just reformer or just tower, but both together, because you can do so much. So, and just explaining why. I always want to know the why. So why are we doing this exercise? What's the point of it? And if I can't find a point of the exercise, I often won't include it, because I'm like, if it doesn't have a daily life connection, not going to do it. But education takes a long time to write. So my dream would be my special needs son will graduate high school in 2 years, and maybe to back off daily hours of being 7 hour a day, 6 hour a day, to maybe 2 or 3 hours a day during the week, and educating more on the weekends, being able to, use my educational materials for people who want to be master instructors for Pilates and be a mentor to them. Because I really love the mentorship of master instructors and of students. That's where I feel like I thrive and get real excited.
What's the name
of your foot stuff?
What's the name of your program?
So we're going to call it the Onyx Method since our video.
Yeah. Okay, because I'm interested.
I love that.
Because, I'm still master training, and I'm so excited about this. I just recently I got approval to do a continuing education workshop through NPCP. And I know I really was like so excited this weekend. They started following me on social media. So, so I'm excited, and I really want to branch out and continue, to be able to offer, like you're talking about, more of the mentorship and more of the, support, because especially in a big program, it's hard. Like you're saying, it's hard to get in all those hours. It's hard to find an instructor that you really resonate with and that really covers, all of the different levels of cueing that, you know, you want to make sure that you include. And like you're saying, like understanding the purpose of the exercise for not only as an instructor being able to understand it, but also being able to teach it in a way that your client understands the purpose. And then how do you translate that in a private setting versus a large group setting where there's 12 reformers? That's really challenging. And so I'm so interested. Yeah, so I'm interested in all that you're doing because I want to be better at being, you know, a mentor and for anybody who's an instructor, new instructor, learning to be an instructor. And then also, of course, my own teacher trainers that are going through the program. And even sometimes after, they'll reach out, like, I've been teaching for 2 years and I don't know anything. And I still feel like I've been teaching for 12 years. And yeah, I'm still learning. So that's one of the cool things about it. And one that I've always loved about you is you're so inclusive. You know, like I just think sometimes there can be a little bit of division within the industry amongst instructors, amongst studio owners, amongst classical, contemporary, you know. And one of the things that I feel like you've always done really well, which is so inspiring to me, is embrace, you know, everyone, and you're so encouraging. And so I just really look up to you, and I'm just excited that we are. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I'm just excited that our paths continue to cross.
I love it. And I want it to continue happening that way.
Me too. Okay, well, anything else you want to add before we go?
I think we covered everything that I can think of. Oh, you know what? This is one thing. I was talking to a group of students about 2 weeks ago. And one of the things I did want to say is when I was telling them, you know, like, don't bring into the room what's going on in your personal life, because it's not the member's job to carry that for you. And so you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself outside of work. And we talked about, I heard a marriage counselor once, and he's from Nashville, named Dr. Joe. And he said, if you're working on the PIES, the PIESs of life, which is physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual, and you're well-rounded and not getting off balance in those, and you're taking care of those areas, then you're going to be attractive to anybody you come in contact with. You'll always be attractive to people and to friendships, significant others, whatever it is. And so I took that, and I'm like, I'm going to start thinking through that all the time. And I thought that's true of our job. If we're taking care of those 4 areas, and we've talked about self-care, when we walk in the room, those things it'll be easier to leave those things behind and move forward. And so, you know, I have found that to be very true with hard situations in family life for me personally. And I might cry all the way to work, but because I have a strong, maybe church community that loves on me in those hard situations, or because I'm getting my own personal counseling, because I'm physically taking care of my own exercise, you know, things like that, then I can walk in that room and I'm taking care, you know, I can leave that other stuff behind and walk in and take care of the people in front of me. So that's my advice to everyone, is to do that. Take care of those pies. And
yes, I'm
that way you'll
shared that.
Be that help.
Yes, that's really helpful. I love that. And it's true. And sometimes I think it makes it more difficult when you're going through something and then you have to shut it off and then go in and pretend like everything's fine and you're happy. And, you know, especially as a mom, and you know, my son has, you know, some difficulties, and of course you can relate to that. And so sometimes that can be really, really challenging, but I think you and I, for sure, that's definitely one of our strengths, that we are able, yes, that we're able to compartmentalize like that. And, so that's really impressive to me. I'm glad you shared that. Okay. Thank you so much. This is such an honor to have you here. And let's stay in touch and share with everyone. So Onyx Method, ONYX Method.
Yes. Yeah. TheOnyxMethod.com.
Okay, perfect. And then Provision Studio in Homewood. Thank you, Kristy McKinney.
Yes.
Love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for tuning in. For more information, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Pilates is the Answer, and on the web at pilatesistheanswer.com.
Feel free to message us with questions for which you are searching the answer.
We would love for you to follow our podcast, leave a kind review, and lots of stars.